I don't need to talk about how excited we are live, and I'm always happy to be here. Shalom. Good morning in Israel. Good evening in Melbourne. Good morning in France, border Italy. We are live today. This is TMS Roundtable. My name is Dr. Tova Goldfein, and I'm always, you all know how happy I'm always happy to be here with Rose, my professional partner and very good friend and wonderful co-host for this wonderful TMS Roundtable, where we assist people and educate people and inspire about healing chronic pain and autoimmune disease. Good evening, Rose, down there with the kangaroos.
Yes, and the rain.
And a lot of rain. A lot of rain.
Terrible. Anyway, today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a wonderful young woman from France who's originally from Denmark. Now, she is a ski instructor. She's also a, white raft driver, a bicycle enthusiast over the the French Alps, etc., etc. But Lena was a patient with ankylosing spondylitis. Now, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, she felt that she was stuck and that she'd never be able to do all these awesome things like being a ski instructor, looking after her 2 little children, etc. And she found TMS Roundtable and started her journey. So welcome, Lena. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Please tell us, about being from Denmark, where it's all flat. I don't think I've seen a mountain in Denmark ever when I've been there. There might be a hill here and there, but no mountains, not like alpine mountains. So please tell us about that. And, she's had a journey, philosophical journey as well. And I don't know if we can incorporate that as well, but it would be just delightful if you'd bring some of your ideas on board about how you saw the world and how you were able to actually move into that area of doing what you really love, because not many people do what they really love. They do what they were trained to do, or they suffer, just whatever. But you moved into that space where you were out on those ski slopes and you were able to go down those hills or mountains. But in a way, isn't it funny that you're able to challenge yourself to do those things that most normal people can't? And then your spine got tight and hard. Interesting, isn't it?
You were setting up a lot of thoughts there, Rose.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously not a very short story. It's my whole life story.
That's right. And we've got a good hour.
Start from the beginning, all the details.
So for a start, I think of myself as someone who has had a really good life, despite all the things that happened on my path, and lots of difficult things as well. So I come from a big family. It started out with mum and dad and 5 siblings. And when I was 5 years old, my mum passed away. She was ill from asthma, and it wasn't very well managed. And she was indeed very ill from it. Normally, if it had been well managed, she probably wouldn't have passed away from it, but she did. And it was in the 80s, in a time where you dealt with that, not talking about it, So one day she was there, and the next day, to a little 5-year-old girl that was being protected by all the adults around her.
Yeah.
Mom was just gone, and she just didn't really exist. She vanished. And I know that I was supposedly being protected, but it was very hard. I was in the world on my own with my grief and my questions. And so it was this climate of, growing up all the way into the 90s, into me becoming a young adult, all the way through, I was on my little journey. To me, it was very much I was a detective. I was trying to find out. Who was she? Piecing things together, looking at family albums and listening to stories, because of course people did talk about it. The only thing was that when she was being talked about, when people were remembering her and sharing their memories, it was quite often it was always this underlying traumatic experience that were coloring their emotions. And it was always very, very sad. And I always felt like it required a sad response from me. And from when I was little, I just remember very consciously being very aware of looking after the adults, of not making them upset, because I could tell that they were going to get really upset if I started crying or if I asked too many questions. So it very much, the words that I've learned to put on it now, it set that programming in me. I learned how to survive in that environment, in that kind of emotional climate. And it's just followed me through. So really, it is the main experience in my life that has colored everything else that I've done in my life. And I've kind of known that for a few years. I just didn't connect it with what happened down the line when I started having symptoms that suddenly wouldn't go away. So I was a young adult and a child even who was full of questions, and it was I couldn't just accept that life was just getting up, going to school, and then that was it. I knew that you could die. I knew that things last forever, and it put this lens, a quite intense look on life above everything.
And she studied philosophy to add to it.
I had to study philosophy, because how can you not?
To bring a heavier load to your life, you said, I want to take more of this. I want to go deeper, and that was heavy on the spine.
I didn't understand why the whole world didn't, why didn't we implement philosophy in school from a very early age? Why didn't we educate ourselves on this and see things like this on the news? I was like I was thinking things like that when I was a kid. And I guess always felt quite different to others, but it was very much an interior world. It wasn't necessarily something I was sharing at a very young age. Now I'm just this intense person who can't do superficial talks.
And you're in the right studio for that.
Anyways, I've learned to live with it. That's just me.
When was it? So I'm just going to direct you a little bit, but I want to hear the details. So when did you have a first physical symptom that you were aware of that?
When she had to be quiet. That was the first physical symptom.
Sorry, Rose.
When you had to be quiet, that was the first physical symptom. When you had to protect. It
was your first repression of feelings, but how was it reflecting?
I don't recall. I had a very active childhood. We were always out playing. I grew up in a really beautiful, natural area. I used my body. I was super confident in my body. I was capable in my body. Actually, that's what I found I was good at, and everything else that I was struggling with, being teased. I would even be teased with, you only got that because your mum is dead. Some of the kids in my class would say things like that to me. And so I would close down and even more and not talk about that. So it became very much a thing that I tried to make disappear, in a sense.
You needed to hide it. You needed to hide your feelings.
And also if I started talking about it, I would just... I didn't know how to express it without just falling apart.
Wow.
And you can hear there's a little bit left of that. It's always it's been such a big part of how my whole body and my whole being grew into this world. So it's
don't ever lose that child inside. Keep her.
Oh, she's there all the time, and she but she's much more part of my life every day now. So so yes, I had to study philosophy, but I very quickly realized that was not what I needed. It wasn't real in a way. Like, it wasn't reaching.
It's someone's thoughts, not your lived experience.
You know, and I needed to be out and hear my own voice, you know. This has been a journey of coming home to myself. And back then I was just reaching out, and I was testing different paths. And when they were paths away from myself, I somehow knew to jump off it. I felt it was a bit of a failure when I was leaving university, because I've always done quite well at school and been.
Were there any physical symptoms?
Girl, I've always done well, done my things. And
from Lena, from age 5, when your mom passed, and you were so aware. Many children are not so aware. Were you noticing anything like stomach aches or neck pain because you were so active? You were just jumping into physical activity to shut off your feelings. Were there any physical symptoms happening in college and university?
So then, when I was getting a bit older, and I guess being less active as I grew older, I was just, you're not at home, and you can't just go out and play in the forest and climb a tree or whatever you do, run around, cycle, discover. The less active I became, then definitely. I mean, I seized up more and more.
Okay. But you weren't actually
hindsight thing, you know. That's something I can see now, and I certainly wasn't. I was not in any shape or form connecting different pains the way that I see it now. So I would have pains in my knees. I remember in the past having a swollen knee, and I couldn't relate it to anything. I hadn't done anything. I hadn't twisted it. I hadn't hit it on anything. I hadn't done anything that I could relate to it. I would have recurring neck problems, and sometimes so much that I would have to tiptoe around on my feet. I couldn't rotate up here in the neck. So, not really migraines as such, not recurring migraines, but periods where, I don't normally have headaches. Why do I suddenly have headaches?
Do you think they were related to responsibility? See, there's another part of your life.
Not so much.
Well.
When I look back, I think more that I have this red line of a lack of confidence in myself, lack of self-worth, a mountain of limiting beliefs that have just held me back from, I'm not good enough at doing that. Oh God, what will the others think of me? Wanting to do things perfectly, because that I learned that, I learned to confuse high achievements or good achievements with my own worth. So when I did good at school, everybody was proud of me. When I acted in certain ways, that would be acknowledged in a different way. And also being when I was at school, feeling as an outsider and being teased by classmates and not really having any close friends. I had friends that I really valued, but they had a friend that was a better friend than me. So I was never the best friend, as much as I had the other kids that were teased who I could resonate with. But then I was one of the fastest at running, even faster than most of the boys. I was strong. I could jump the highest. I honestly had, there wasn't a task that they could try this, and I would ask, can we go a bit higher? And I was good at that. So I I loved that, and I got a positive response from it. So I found confidence in that, and that's obviously also what carried me onto a path of sports of
absolutely powerful sport.
yeah.
And
So maybe that was also a way of, of course it was a path that worked for me, but I also found that when I discovered, I went on a ski trip when I was at school. So it wasn't a family thing that we were doing. It was going on this school trip, and I just loved it so much, and I was getting it from day one. And this sport in this amazing nature, and I wasn't relying on anyone for team sports. It was just me being capable in my own rights, and I could explore and develop. And like, I found
you and the mountain,
freedom in it.
and the mountain.
Yes, it was me. It happened to be in the mountains, but the mountains really became something. It was so much bigger than me, and I have always had this inner feeling and sensation of being emotionally suspended in this magnificent nature, and they are so raw and so wild, and so there's nothing inside of me that can even it just diminished everything in me so that I could take it and look at it, and it didn't look so serious and so horrible and so hard anymore, and I could take it out and I could blend it into this.
So at this time in your life, like at that trip, for example, you were nothing could stop you, fearless.
That something did stop her.
And then
she became a mother.
Right.
She became a mother.
And then, like step by step, like you went to
well, I think in terms of the symptoms that I've felt during throughout my adult life, I was always moving, so they didn't become chronic in hindsight, but they came back, and something else came back, and there was always something lingering.
Like always a neck,
and I was fit, and I was moving. I had lots of different sports I was doing, so I was moving in different ways. I had that body confidence, and then as Rose said, I became a mother, so it opened up everything. My own mother relation, all my wounds surrounding that, and just becoming pregnant. I was pregnant I gave birth when I was 37, so 36, 37. My mum passed away when she was 38. Wow. I had a lot of anxiety surrounding the pregnancy and emotions coming out, reliving her, what it meant to be her, what her life would have been like. Wow. And all her fears in relation to, because she was already ill at that time. So it's then becoming. I had 2 pregnancies quite close to each other. There's 18 months between the 2, and both pregnancies had complications. So in the first one, I was hospitalized for a week. Hospital protocol was that I had to stay for a week. But I was then sent home, and I was on bed rest for another 6 weeks.
Wow, that's
until so that. But at least I was at home, and then 9 months go by, and I'm then become pregnant again. And when I'm 4 months pregnant, I start bleeding, and it turns out I have a placenta previa. We already knew that. And anyways, I go into hospital, and very long story cut short, I'm hospitalized for 10 weeks, quite far from the home. I was still breastfeeding my first one, so that was quite an intense rupture. I couldn't see them very often. I had bleeds every 2 weeks. I had fear of dying, fear of the child dying. It was really.
So all of a sudden there was this like confidence in your body could do anything, and then all of a sudden this emotional shift and physiological shift and health anxiety about your body not working for you and trying to understand what your body was. Wow, that's really extreme for your heart and your soul.
it was.
So when did the back pain start?
Sorry?
So when did your symptoms start? While you were in hospital?
Oh, no. So, no, I've not had anything that resembled chronic pain up until a year. And well, not this August, but last August, it started. So I've had things that lingered for maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 days, and always being quite active. I would be like, oh, maybe I've overdone something, or it's an old thing, or maybe I've not been moving right, or, I would come up with some kind of explanation in my head. I wouldn't go to the doctors. I would go to the osteopath or to a physiotherapist, or I would have a massage, or we live in an area where even friends, a friend dropped by, he's an osteopath, and he would go clink, 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 quite and then I would be sorted, so my belief in that is also very strong. So I would quite often have a strong effect from any treatment that I was getting like that. But it was not anything that I would really fully worry about. And then so in France, children are, they call it school from a very young age. It's what the rest of us would call kindergarten. However, it is a little bit more school-like in France. And I come from a culture that is less structured. They're out playing all day, etc. It's free play. It's not directed play at school. So when my youngest Freya was ready to go to school, I had a lot of resistance already. I needed to be proven that it was not detrimental to a 3-year-old. She wasn't even 3; she was 2 years old. She was just turning 3 in the beginning of that school year in September. But I carried a lot of reluctance towards the system already, and still do. And I was angry about it, to be honest. I had this. I was saying to people, I was really very directly expressing it with words like anger. I was letting all my thoughts and resentment towards, particularly the school system, out, because I just find it so. It doesn't support a young developing child, because it's just for them to fit a box that makes it possible for the adult world to function, and it doesn't support them in their emotional development, because there's not enough adults available for them to be guided through the moments that they need to be guided through.
Could I just interrupt for a moment, Lena?
Yes.
And tell the audience that although she's resentful of the school system there, she has got 2 children that are out on that mountain. And although they're not getting it at school, they're getting that sense of freedom out there. And it's just so lovely to see those photos and those children just in the snow and just enjoying their lives. So I just want to add that although you were angry, and you are angry, and we know that children need to have free play, we know all that, but you're providing it for them. I just wanted to let the audience know that yes, your frustration has forced you, I suppose, to make sure that those children get the type of care that you got as you were growing up. So anyway, I've interrupted you. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. But it was very much a moment when I think when you have children, certainly for me, it has just been, it's a lot of reliving your own, seeing yourself from the outside almost, and reliving your own story in many ways. And me having lost my mum so young as well, I don't know, it makes me look at that little child in front of me as much as it's my own child, but that's brings me closer to home.
Yes.
Who I was and what it was that happened, and my mum's position in relation. It was so. It's been a really emotional journey that's opened up so many old boxes that were put away on a nice little shelf and looked after, and forced me to look at these things again. And it's been a lot of things all at the same time. So sometimes I've struggled to keep and take it all on board. And I think in hindsight, I can see now what happened. But basically I come through her first school year, and then come August, in the middle of the summer holidays, I start to get this pain in my sacroiliac, so in my lower, in the pelvis, on the back of where the sacrum attaches.
Yep.
And I treat it in my head like I have always done when I've had something coming up. I would be trying not to focus too much on it, and I tried to just give it time. But it would come and go for a little bit, but mostly it would be coming
and staying.
Come and stay. And then in early September, late August or early September, it was pretty much constant, not all the way through the day, but every day I would have pains where suddenly it would come on and my brain would go, ooh, oh, and I would walk 10 steps. And as I walked, it felt like a countdown. 10, 9, 8, and I came to 1 and I couldn't take another step.
Wow.
Couldn't go any further. And I guess, thinking back to that moment, those moments of my body just seizing up and just stopping me where I was. You can't do any.
Frozen in the moment.
And back then I didn't relate it to anything that had happened. I just was like, what is this? What have I done? And I saw an osteopath that I very much resonate with, and she's incredible. And she did help me. It did get better for a little moment, my lovely little placebo lady. But it just came back. And over the next months, I just went from being this normal functioning person with the occasional issues here and there, but not something that I would read anything into, just something that I would move through and consider a normal part of being a human with a physical body. And I mean, every single day it was at least a 6. Some days.
So
7,
were you still working out on the slopes at this time as well?
No. So at this point in time, we are on the west coast of France. My husband is a surf instructor in the summer, and I was with the kids all the time, and there was not a lot of time for me and for myself, for me to go and do things, and everything is involving dragging lots of stuff with you and just making the day work and getting us all out and doing life. But it was Mummy Donkey who was were
you officially diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis from the medical system?
Not at that point in time. So this is the early stages of it all becoming chronic. So I didn't know at that time that it was becoming chronic. It was still early stages, but I was whatever. I then came, so early September, we are then moving back to, we do seasonal lives. So we then come back to the mountains, and I went and saw my doctor.
And this is the point where, like, scientifically, physiologically, chemically, the brain is starting to feel a constant threat from that doesn't exist. Your body's perceiving a threat.
Yeah.
And so it's protecting you and letting you function, but continually pulling blood and oxygen into different places and creating enormous imbalance hormonally. And when I think about, what I've learned with the neuroplastic work and what I've learned with Rose in the, ISTDTP, like the intensive short-term dynamic therapy, and understanding how the body is reacting and trying to protect you, but in essence, creating enormous physical and physiological symptoms that you're not even feeling that much, but can you imagine what's happening inside of the system?
So
you went to the doctor?
I went to the doctor and I described my symptoms. We tried out some medications to try and help me manage the pain. And I didn't have any great effect of any of it.
Narcotics?
No, just, I mean, I had I don't retain the names of all the...
No, I just in general, because often the pain is so intense, people are put on things like tramadol and that straight away. So I'm just wondering.
And also, the names in France are different to what it is. So I wouldn't know which ones to... I know I was on Valium at one point, but it would be... so whatever I was put on, never
didn't touch
it
you.
More than maybe take 50% off what I was feeling, if that.
Now, when the doctor actually said to you that this was incurable and it was going to progress, what happened to you?
Well, that was further down the line, but I think even in the very beginning, going to the doctor, obviously you're kind of desperate for some kind of help. You are leaning onto them and you're hoping they're going to give you something. And I think in the process of like trying out in the beginning different medications and it not working, and then I go to see him again, and then he starts asking me about family history. He starts asking me about, do you know the gene? I can't, what is it called again? I can't even remember anymore.
Yeah, I know, a gene that's been switched on. Does
that ring any bell? Does anybody in your family, have they ever talked about that? No. And there is no one in my family with a history of... He was looking for ankylosing spondylitis, and he says this name, and I'm like, that sounds pretty big.
That's pretty bad.
that was my thought. I didn't know what it was, and I knew that there was no one in my family that I'd ever heard talking about that. So for a start, that was good, I guess. However, you obviously go home and you look up ankylosing spondylitis.
Yes, that's what I mean.
And then it just kind of spirals off and does its own thing and gets its own life. And that's what happened in me as well. And it did create a lot of worry and a lot of fear and a lot of like, what? It's not... There's no cure. You can only manage it. And he's there talking, and I have to go and do different scans, and he refers me to a rheumatologist. And none of them, the only thing that they say to me is some people manage to live an all right life and do sports even. But, when you have flare-ups, it's important that we find out what medication works best for you. So I would like you to try. So she makes me this long list of
without asking you about your emotions.
Never.
No.
So I do offload on I come to see my doctor at one point because I'm in such pain and I am sad. I just burst into tears the moment he opens his door, and I just cry out, I can't do anymore. And he takes me in and he listens to me, and I just offload, not because he's asked, and he's he's lovely, and but he listens to me, and he does say it would be good to maybe see a psychologist or So he does acknowledge that it could help to deal with some emotional pain in terms of, and he does talk about a relation of between the pain and the emotions, but that is as close as we get. There is at no point in time where any health professional that I am in touch with who specifically tells me of the and spells out and lays out this journey and these tools that are out there and helps me realize that if I understand what pain really is, there's no one who sat me down and said to me, do you know what pain is? Do you know how it works in the brain? Do you know that it's not just this thing that is, you know, there's a problem, physical problem, structural issue in your physical body, and therefore you feel pain. No, the pain only exists if your brain says it exists. It is.
That's right.
It is a protection system in your brain, and it will do anything in the more worried, the more anxious it is, the bigger the story surrounding this issue is, the more the brain will protect you. Nobody ever said that to me. I had to find that out by myself.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go down a path of talking the medical world down, and that there is no need for it, because there is. But we need to incorporate these two things and integrate them into each other. They are not separate. But it is quite mind-blowing that health professionals, I mean, this is everywhere. If you look at universities and studies that are out there, and placebo and nocebo and, you know, neuroscience, neuroplasticity, it is all there, readily available by scientists. If they want it factual, if they want it proven, if they, you know, for the person, for the people, for the brain that needs to understand it like that and have it.
Well, there are medically explained symptoms. There are medically explained symptoms that doctors can take care of, and we get better. And then there's medically unexplained symptoms that become TMS. Again, medicine is there, and people, you know, I'll take an Advil, my headache gets better, and that doesn't become chronic. But if it's chronic, we got to look at, and that's where the doctors will say, yes, I know that, but I'm better at this. So yeah,
but that's what they're trained. They're trained in medicating you. So those are the tools.
So you found doctors
that they've got, and sometimes we need those tools. But I think also on the other side, it's not just the medical community; it's also our culture. We need to get better and knowing. I wish I had known in this case, I should have looked for a therapist of whatever sorts.
But you didn't know.
I didn't know. Huh?
And who would have directed you there?
Well, that's what would be great if we could shift our society so that we had them all cooperating and
with one another.
With one another, so that we had a language for this. You know, when people have back pain, they go to the doctor and they almost expect to be prescribed some medication. They would be.
Well, that's the other thing that doctors will say to me when I talk about this with doctors. They say the patient wants a script. When they come to the doctor, if you don't give them a script, they get angry with you.
Yeah.
Because they think they're broken. They think there's something broken. And, you know, pain, this kind of pain is counterintuitive. Nothing's broken. So we have to think out of the box, because the way your pain started is a perfect divine concert of body, mind, pain. You know, I mean, and even if you had an injury, you told me you had a ski injury, or I would still be talking and say, yeah, but the body heals. And why is it chronic? So go ahead. So tell us, but the point is, now you're at the doctor's, you're getting medication, you're not getting relief. Then what happens?
So I look everywhere for help. So I'm obviously trying. Well, I start trying the different medications. I never finished trying them all, because I start researching and I go to the physiotherapist during the week, 2-3 times. 3 times. It's very well. It's paid for in France, so I didn't have to. I didn't have to worry of the financial stress of that. But I also pay myself to go and see the osteopath. I go to it's called a magnetist. So like I do all kinds of energy, very open. And I was very, very, very desperate. I have days when I can't move. I have to roll. It takes me 15 minutes to roll over in bed to be able to get out of bed. I'm worried about my kids coming and jumping at me to get a hug. I have to prepare myself. If I need to sneeze, I have to slowly crawl. I had to slowly crawl into a foster position to be able to do a sneeze, and it would still just be so scary.
Wow.
I can't even. It wouldn't be like that all day, but it would be like that every day.
Yeah.
It was really, really, really horrible. So I'm not into institutional religion, but I'm very spiritual. And I'm very open to anything that I feel opens me up, and that, on a mind level, on a soul level, on a heart level, I'm very open to many things, I think. And that was my saving grace. So I do start this journey of just looking everywhere, and I go to a craniosacral therapist, I go to acupuncture, and all kinds of energetic things, and I really get a lot of peace in my body from that. But it doesn't do it for me.
You somehow accept what's going on because of the calmness, but it still keeps going. Is that what you're saying?
So I'm also doing I had a really incredible physiotherapist, actually, who's very open to all things, and she's also a Pilates instructor, and she actually gave me these really nice flow exercises, and she was very gentle in the way she approached me, and very much listened. She listened to all of this, me going through the process of learning all these different things. I'm talking to her, and then I saw this, and then I read that, and then suddenly one day I come across you guys. So I looked up. I was like, I'm just gonna have a little look on YouTube, and I put in ankylosing spondylitis, and there's some videos of some men, doctors, who are talking about the protocol ideas of what ankylosing is from a rheumatologist's point of view. And then there are this picture of of you and Ralph Ruiz and Michael Galinsky. And I see that video.
Just by the way, there's a number of videos about ankylosing spondylitis around.
Michael Eisner as well.
It's definitely and we have another. So there's a couple. But this was the first, and thank God you found it. So go ahead,
yeah. So I listened to that, and I was like, "What?" I really couldn't believe my own ears, because part of me wanted to believe it so badly that there wasn't way out. But I honestly still, there's a little teeny weeny seed from back then that just still can't fathom what I have come across, that it has had such a profound effect, and that it is so supported by, it resonates all the way through my system, all the way through my body. Every single thing I've ever learned, anything I've read since then, science papers, and listening to scientists who've done studies on placebo and nocebo, and the neuroplasticity, how it works, and what the pain research, newer pain research tells us that pain is. It is just so obvious that the medical system that we are moving around in our different cultures across the world, that it has not infiltrated how we think about pain as a human being who is moving in and out of the medical system or not, but also how the when they're being trained, when they when they do their studies to become doctors and rheumatologists and whatever, it has not infiltrated, and this is where we meet. And there's
True.
just this big gaping hole that we need to fill up with this knowledge. And I still feel like when I've been trying to talk about these things, I've been possibly a little bit too evangelical.
Well,
as one friend said to me, yes, Lena, I understand. I remember when I had something as well, and he said he had that same feeling of like just wanting the whole world to know and wanting to share it and saying, you know what, this could really change our world so profoundly because of what it is. It's so accessible, but it's very difficult because it means that people have to take responsibility for a lot of things themselves. It's a lot of inwards, internal stuff. It's a lot of going deep within and realizing how you work, how we have been, what programming happened in us as we grew up. It doesn't have to be huge traumatic things. It doesn't have to be horrible neglect, but whatever we experience in life it will make our nervous system grow and mold itself in a certain way so that we can go out and navigate our exterior world. And that turns into our patterns. And those patterns sometimes are limiting to us and other times not. And the more aware we are of our own patterns and what thoughts are popping up, it is the limiting set of beliefs in us that makes us worried, that makes us stressed out, that makes us feel not good enough, not strong enough, that holds us back from living who we really are and being who we really are. And that's what happened to me as well. And I do want to saying that I have come through this without understanding myself 100%, without fixing all my little micro or macro traumas 100%. I want to really say, whatever you've got going on, you do not have to understand it perfectly. You don't have to know every single thing about you. You don't have to dig out every single trauma or story or talk to every person who's ever hurt you or fix everything inside of you. It actually suffices to just understand how the brain functions and what effect it has in your system. And then when you have something and you're like, I don't know what it is, I can't figure it out, just be kind to yourself. Just tell yourself, I don't have to understand all of that. I just have to understand that there is this connection and there isn't actually a physical issue here. This is my mind trying to protect me and it's kicking in. But I have been writing letters to my brain.
Beautiful. No, Dr. Schrubener talks about a story of a woman who journaled and spoke to her brain.
Yeah,
I've been a relationship between you.
Yeah.
It's a communication between you and your brain and your body. And for some of us, it's our soul. It's a pattern, and you couldn't express yourself as a child. And so that relationship was abruptly aborted. And then now you're reliving that relationship and having a relationship with yourself, your voice, your little girl. This is beautiful, beautiful insights of healing. And it sounds like a little bit like New Age, but it's so science what you're saying, Lena.
It is. I'm happy to.
It's about self-reflection. It's not New Age.
Self-reflection.
It's not, but we have this idea also in our culture, and without going too much into conspiracy theories about lobbyists and whatever.
You don't go there.
No, we don't want to go there, but we have an idea of everything that is about the mind and everything that goes in that direction. We call them alternative therapies.
But it's not.
But the real therapy supposedly is drugs to do medications. But the real therapies, it's very clear in my head that everything that we do, breathing exercises, knowing, even yoga, qigong, whatever. There's different things that different.
And then the drugs will work. When we do that, the drugs will work better. So the drugs could be, take this drug and meditate and journal, and the drug will work better.
Yeah, but to me now, the real therapies are that, and my alternative therapy are taking medication.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think
so we can share. We're running a little bit out of time, but we still have some time. But can you share a little bit about the chapter where you began to feel better, even though you were getting better at feeling, but then the symptoms were changing, and you were able to accept when you couldn't move and you weren't reacting so much, as opposed to. So tell us a little bit about the part where you're able to move through this and live your life.
So so after having seen the video that with you and hearing Ralph talking, I obviously realized that there's the book of Johnny Sarno. And so I actually joined Ralph he shared some podcasts where he's reading out with a group. It was a recording I was listening to, but I'd listen to that going to work, coming back home from work. I have half an hour drive, so they were 1 hour episodes, so I'd listen to half, think about it when I was at work, sometimes using it in my coaching with people. So I could really play around with it in my mind whilst I was at work as well. And then I would listen to the rest, and every single time I'd be like telling my husband or calling him saying, you must listen to this. This is incredible. And I was each chapter of the book, essentially, I was living it. I was really, really living it. And at one point, there's talk about even anything positive that you're doing, anything that you are doing that feeds into the story of there being a problem is counterproductive.
Wow.
So I was doing meditations, I was doing stretches, I was doing physiotherapy, I was doing Pilates, I was doing acupuncture, I was seeing the doctor, I was getting massages, I was following Ralph, I was following the community, I was diving in everywhere I could. I was testing out medication from the rheumatologist. She even wanted me to journal and say, how much pain do you feel today? I didn't do that because I knew that's only gonna reinforce what I knew what I'd say. And that was even early on. That was not for me. Anyways, not from one day to the next, but in a very short period of time, I realized that I had to stop every single thing that fed into the story of there being a problem. Wow. So I stopped stretching. I stopped Pilates. I said to my physiotherapist, I said, and I was already starting to get better. So everything I was doing was like now I was in a positive spiral instead of like the negative, I can't do anything and you are incurable and da da da. So my pain had already started to ease off, and I was like, okay, let's try some more. So I found confidence to bit by bit let go of all these things. I stopped that. And then one day I went down to the pharmacy and I said, there you go. And I handed them over this huge bag.
Don't you love this? Don't you love this story?
And I was a little bit nervous. I was. And I was like, oh, what if? There was that what if? And I was like, no, I'm doing it. And I'd gotten myself back on the hill after having, in the autumn, I had to cancel end of November. I had to call up clients and say, I'm really sorry. I can't do it. This is what is. Luckily, I know a lot of them. I've skied with them before, and they were like, just get better, Lena. So they didn't put any pressure on me. They were incredible. But I'd gone from thinking I would even up until early January, I'd cancel all of this November, December, January, and early January. I thought maybe I would never ski again. Maybe I would never do sports again. Maybe I didn't know where it was taking me. I was really in a no man's land, and I was quite depressed about it still, and fearful, and I couldn't really. I was like, what? How can I reinvent myself having an issue like this? What can I do? I can't sit. I can't lie down. I can't stand up. I can't use my body. I am so much pain that I can't concentrate. I can't think. And then slowly getting myself out of that circle. And then mid-January, I am going back on the mountain, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go and see if I can ski. And I'm moving, and I ski this black run, and I'm like, I'm not hurting. And I was so excited. It was just these little moments of excitement, and suddenly I had this belief.
You took the pain for a ski.
Yeah, well, I stopped. I did. I stopped focusing on the end goal of I need to fix this.
Beautiful. Amazing insight.
Yeah. And I focused just on being in the process, and I was doing lots of sort of breathing out negative thoughts or darkness. I could visualize myself breathing out black particles out of my body, and just taking in the light and looking around and just being really grateful for where I was and for what I was doing and what I was capable of doing.
Very, very important insight.
Managing my thoughts, because my thoughts are just that. They lost their hold of me. And it was so, but really the most important thing in that period right there was to let go of everything that I was using as a crutch to control something that wasn't there.
Beautiful. Well said.
So I
stop you for a minute and answer this question from Peter.
Look at Peter, what he's just said.
Yeah.
Lena, have a look at that.
Can you see the question?
I'm back to where. Hi, Peter. Thank you. I am back 200%. I have these little moments of a little tickle down there, like my brain is just asking me, are you sure that you don't need me to look after you? And instead of diving into that, I go, it's okay, brain. I write myself another little letter, and then it goes. It just, or in the earlier phases, I would use, I had this understanding of the gate control of the pain only being able to receive one signal at a time. So, you know, when your child hurt, if it hurts itself, and you give it a little rub on the shoulder, well, then you're giving the brain a signal to focus on instead of focusing on the pain. So when I was out there skiing, and I remember this specific day when I was skiing with some 10-year-old-ish kids, and they wanted to go to the snow park, and I was like, oh my God, should I do this? Because I still had this like fear of the idea. I've seen scans. I had scans with huge inflammations, and then the physiotherapist going, "Oh," wow. And that it's existed in the back of my mind. I was like, "Oh, so what if I am making something worse by going into the park and jumping off a blue jump and landing and impact and like, okay." Thoughts and
so you can do the jump and the impact now.
I did it, and then after I'd done that, but I had this. It was as if my brain, I could feel this nerve tingle going into my sacroiliac joint, but it was as if I had gained the control of the switch, because I realized that it was my brain using this signal. It was a protection signal. Do you want me to send this protection signal? And I was like, letter to the brain. No, you don't have to. It's okay.
You became the pilot. You were the pilot.
It was an insane experience. Wow. And I've just done that since. And the more you do it, every little bit, just hang on to it, believe in it. It just became better and better. And even now, I mean, now I'm nearly coming close to a year around to that time. I worked the rest of that season every single day. I lifted kids. I supported big adult men learning how to ski or nearly falling over. The happier I got, the more I believed in the story, the more it's reinforced itself, it is really important to study the connection between the brain and what the pain signal is, what that understanding that it is a protection response. It doesn't exist until the brain thinks so. And if the thoughts in your mind are supporting the idea that there's a problem, if you're letting the thought run wild, if you don't stop that thought before it catches too much momentum, then it will feed into your brain. But if you can take charge of that thought and just acknowledge, oh, there it is again, and you can say back to yourself, listen, it's okay. You're safe. There's nothing around you right now. It is just your mind. Thank you, brain, for trying to protect me, but I am okay. It was things like that.
Could I add, Lena, with what you're saying, is that your thoughts aren't you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Lena's trying to say. Her thoughts are not her. She's able to actually look at her thoughts and evaluate whether that thought is true or not.
Yes.
And that's that reflective capacity that we need to actually start looking at when we've got chronic pain or any of those autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
It's not so much that we've got childhood trauma or all those other things, or that we need to dig everything up, but what we need to do is recognize that our thoughts are not us. And that was one of the key things that Lena found that was able to move her out from being worried about her diagnosis. Have you, by the way, told the doctor about this at all?
I am in the process of, I want to take this back to him, and I want to also contact the rheumatologist, and my hope is that they will listen to me and that I can plant some kind of seed with them so that at least they start spreading the word, approaching it in a different way, because I went through early in the period just after, I was blown away by what I had experienced and the lack of understanding in the general health, medical world, and I was really annoyed that they didn't, like, here I am saying, they're asking how are you doing? Really well, and I'm actually telling them, but they don't really hear it. It's as if, oh, you're good, okay, on to the next. But I think they are overloaded. They don't have a lot of time for each patient. It really requires quite a lot of structural change for the medical professionals to be able to incorporate this as well, because the way it's set up, it doesn't function. But they need to be part of this fight for changing the system, and there's no point in making each other. I don't want them to be my opponents. I need them to be with me in this. So that is it. But I wanted very much. Also, I actually wrote, after I'd watched your video on YouTube with Ralph, I wrote at the bottom, this was my experience, thank you, and you replied to me and said, get in touch with us if you want to tell us more.
No, it was really amazing. Thank you so much for connecting us there.
But it took me 6 months to reply to you, because I felt like I had to move through to a place where I didn't. I was very early, just like I rejected the exercises and the physio and all the crutches. I also did not want the community to become a crutch for me. I wanted to come fully out on the other side. So every time I felt like, oh, I must hear more podcasts or interviews or whatever, the more I was diving into it, I was aware that was also feeding my brain's idea of my issue. So I was trying to get back to as normal a life as possible, where it just had turned into this vague memory. Yeah.
Well,
I think at anything I do now, I try to be aware of what is the intention behind what I'm doing. Am I doing an exercise or going for a walk or a run or going biking or doing anything movement wise or whatever I can come up with that I'm doing? What is the real intent? I'm noticing what is the real intention behind. Is it to control a physical symptom? Is it because there's still something in me that's scared because this ankylosing spondylitis or whatever diagnose you've got, whatever hold that's got of you, it's important to notice that the intention behind you doing what you're doing is just for you to feel good, or because you love it, or if the intention is I must do this exercise or else I will get sore or feel pain. I must not lie on my left side because I will feel sore then, or I must not run on hard surface because then I will feel sore, or I must not sit in the car for 3 hours because then I'm going to get sore. Those are limiting
condition response
thoughts, and the intention behind what you're doing is then feeding into the brain's idea of there being a problem. So therefore it is very important to start noticing those belief systems in your head. So it's very individual, and that's also why science
and to have a lot of compassion, and this is what Rose taught me, to have a lot of compassion, and acceptance and understanding that this is our pattern of questioning and wanting things to be perfect and not wanting to feel anxiety, and to just accept it and self-reflect, and be there and
let go of the control of it.
Lena, could I just ask you about pleasure?
About pleasure?
Pleasure, Pleasure. The pleasure on that mountain, and the pleasure in the whiteness and the trees. Were you able to go back to that before you got better? Before you got better, were you able to actually have some pleasure in your life? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Period. Huh?
No. So would there be moments of actual, even with the children maybe, that sense of pleasure?
Of course.
Satisfaction? Could you just sort of just help our audience see that there's another component to this, and that is the pleasure of being alive, even if you're suffering? Would you, I know I've sort of landed this on you, but as you speak, I can see the pleasure and the joy that as you speak. And maybe you haven't thought about it like that, but I've seen it in your face. So I just want to see if you can just draw on it a little bit, because, when we're in constant pain or we've had a bad diagnosis, the pleasure goes until you actually reclaim it. And when you said just before that you go walking for the sake of walking, which is pleasure. So could you just draw out that a little bit more before you sign off, so that anyone watching this video later on will actually be able to see what little bits of pleasure there are in their lives, as well as the pain?
It's probably the hardest.
Yeah, it is. But you spoke about it, though.
You are in so much pain.
That and yet your little darlings come to you.
You don't want to die, but you are struggling to see how you're going to live every day for the rest of your life like that, if that's what it's going to be.
And then you fight against it for the sake of your life and your family.
That's what I did. I was fighting and fighting and fighting and trying to control every single step of it. And I was trying to find solutions and reaching out every single place I could. I mean, it wasn't until I really found that realization within me of letting, that there is a level of accept of what is. And it sounds so crazy that you're having to accept it and just go with it.
And live your life.
And find ways to not worry as much, to not live in the future, to not live in your thoughts, to not live in because your thoughts and it is projections. It's your mind that's projecting into the future. None of that exists, but it creates such immense fear inside of you.
Yeah.
And that immense fear causes
and sort of like a reality.
But yes, it then makes the reality of you being in pain. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So as much as I fully appreciate that when you are in 7, 8 out of 10 pain, and you've been in pain, some people are in it's 10 years down the line, and they're so in this story.
And you separated yourself out. You separated your thoughts.
It's to learn to recognize your thoughts, to take just a little step back from the thoughts. It's okay, they're there. It's okay. It's understandable that you feel fear and you feel anxious about the future, and that your brain, of course, is projecting because it's trying to plan ahead for all the pain that it's going to relive again today. But because it's more in fear, it's going to create that pain because you are fearful of what's coming because you've had it for so long. So it's a super vicious spiral. So if you can take yourself to a place today and write that little letter to your brain, and to give it comfort, to give it a little bit of peace, a moment of calm, and have a shower. Maybe you can't go for a walk, but you can light a candle or read a good book, or you find something that is possible from where you are, and that's where you start. And don't make it about the goal. Just be in the process as much as you manage, and then just
peace will come. Peace will come.
Yeah,
I can. Yeah. Lena, thank you so much. Thank you
to you.
Very, very
Lena, if
much.
anybody wants to reach you, can they reach you on Facebook if they want to speak to you?
Absolutely. Will you link to me, or should I?
Yeah, I think that people, they want to connect you, and I'd like to be able to have permission to send your email. And
yeah, absolutely. I really I am just a very normal person who has suddenly popped up into the ether of all of this, but it is a real story. I really, really want to share it. If anyone wants to reach out, I will share what I can, and I will be in service to that person. And I thank you for having me today. I really, really appreciate it.
It's been our pleasure. Absolutely our pleasure. Yeah.
It helps me reinforce every single time. My brain understands that little bit more, that this is what has been going on. So that has been a huge part of my journey as well, has just been able to, when I've been able to tell a friend, well, this is what I've learned, and that's how the brain works, and that's what pain actually is. Isn't it incredible? And that has so go out and tell your friends, tell the world what it is you're learning, and read this book.
and Dr. Sarno, one of his suggestions is to help others, and also to understand that people might be like, Lena, that's a bunch of crock, so I don't want to hear it, and that we can handle that part of like, okay, it's not for them.
Yes.
It's we can agree to disagree. So this is another out there in the world, living your life, telling your story, accepting that we're different souls. So this is beautiful. Your journey is just beautiful, and it continues. And really, I'm blessed. Rose and I we're like speechless. I can actually be speechless. And I know, Rose, we get very excited. We'll talk on our own, and we'll just get very excited about each week. We have amazing. And so please God, it'll continue for a long, long time, and we'll see you again. And if you need us for any reason, you can find us. Have a wonderful day. Rose, have a wonderful evening.
You too.
God bless. And this is for anyone who...
Is the snow falling on the Alps yet?
Sorry, we
Is
have
the
got.
snow falling?
We're starting to get some snow. Yeah, I'll be going
lovely.
skiing tomorrow, maybe.
Wonderful.
Oh, wow. So there must be enough.
Up top, so we've
Okay.
got glaciers around here that we can access earlier than most of the resorts open.
Oh,
They're
okay.
open mid-December, most of the resorts.
Wonderful.
Isn't that amazing to think she was crippled and now she's out there?
Ken, that's amazing. It's healing can happen, and God bless you for coming to share, and it will continue. And now you know when you have a pain what your body's saying. Hello.
That's okay. Take care, everybody.
See you, Lena.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Tova.
Okay, one
Bye.
thing.